Hey, it's Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and it's Tuesday. It's August 26th. This will be our chart lesson for today. And what started out as a range day ends up as another up day. Um, we actually moved up an almost equal move to the original trend channel that we had started in the earlier morning, and looks like we're going to try to attempt to make another new high here. So we'll see what the market brings tomorrow, but it looks like we're going to try to push higher. So we do have some strong resistance up here. So it's possible we could turn back down, but this market seems to want to go higher. So I would not argue with it. If it tries to go higher, just go with it. Just be careful getting long into this resistance up here, which you'll see a better idea of it when we get to the 2000 tick chart. But let's flip over there to it, and we'll go through the trades and wrap up today. Okay, here we are, and I actually say it was a measured move. We didn't quite get the measured move. We did on this real tight channel here. You can see it moved up a perfect measured move before it came back down and tested these lows a few more times. We broke out here, failed a few times, and then eventually worked higher. So, interesting day. Again, it looked like it was a range for 2/3 of the day, and then just after lunch we kind of broke higher and went higher into the close, as you can see there. Actually, we did make the measured move after all. I was wrong. Um, looks like it came just after the close. It looks like, I don't think we made it before the close. We were close, it looks like, but what's the high here? 64.8750. So we didn't quite make a measured move before the close, but we did make it just after. So I was close. I was thinking we made it, but we didn't quite get there. But we got there. We got close enough to call that a measured move. I'd call that a measured move anytime. So, um, but most of the trades in here were range type, and we just really didn't get a chance to trade this later in the day. Not much going on there that you could really trade that. There was a second entry here that you might have taken. I didn't mark it, but you could argue for that. Um, we'll make it green at least. It's right at 230. This bar closes at 230.54, so I wouldn't have a problem if you took that. It is a second entry, and you do have room to get out, it looks like. So if you took that, you're fine. I did take a couple of trades today testing the chart buttons. I've already posted that. It's already there. Some of you have already seen it. I've noticed it's had a few views. So check those out after the video if you like. Um, watching me use these. These are not available yet. We have not made them available for download. I'm still kind of testing them. The last few tests seem to have gone pretty well. So I think we'll be putting them up soon, but I'll let you know when they're up there. Several people have asked me where they can get them and how to download them or where to buy them or whatever. We'll probably just make them available to anybody that's a premium member and put them in the membership. And if you're a premium member, you can download them for free, basically. That's the plan as of now. So neither one of the guys that have donated their time on these have asked for any money. So if they don't, we'll just make them available to our members. And anything I make available to the members, you usually do have to be a premium member, but they're free to download as long as you're a current premium member. And that's probably how we'll do these. Um, not trying to make money off of them or anything. We're just trying to, but I don't want to be handing them out to everybody in the internet. So we'll just make them available for people that are in our premium membership. So anyway, I'll let you know when those are available. But let's get to the chart lesson here. 7 o'clock came. Where was 7 o'clock? I think it was right in here as we were making this turn. Yeah, just as we made this lower high here is where it happened. It's tempting to want to go short there, but I would not take that short because we're still trending higher here. And you could almost argue there's a triple test, but there's definitely a second entry long here. I marked this green because it's a really big signal bar. Let me zoom in here because that's kind of hard to see. But I did mark this green because it's a really big bar, but there's still room to get out there. If you took it, you would have had a winner. Turns out to be a decent trade. And of course, it breaks out here, fails, comes back, and then turns up again. Even this one's tempting because we've tested that midline across there multiple times. It is a first entry, and it's not a perfect signal bar, but it's right at the key entry point. So if you took that, I'd give that a green. You can see there's a close outside the new low. So if you took that, I'll give it a green. Then it runs up here, and I think you can argue that we've tested this one at least 3 times, and it does make a new high. Notice we're working up, close outside, new high. It's just a first entry, but I think you could argue that we've turned down there a few times. I made it a red just because if there's room back to the EMA, we're probably at least going back to the EMA, probably back to the trend line. But we end up actually getting a break here. So if you took this, it's possible you got more than just a scalp out of it. But it runs down. There's a second entry, third entry here. And you do get a break in a new low here. And that's a fairly low risk bar of 6 ticks. I did not mark that one, but it's another one you could argue as green if you see what's going on there. Takes off, you get 2 legs up, and you get a perfect second entry, and you definitely got a triple test across there now. I really like that trade. I marked it green because we didn't quite have a new high yet, so it could push up one more time. But I'll be honest with you, that's a fairly high probability trade, most likely, at least to get a scalp out of it. And you see it easily comes back to the EMA before it bounces. And we're kind of stuck between the EMA here, and the resistance across there. And we turned down there multiple times. There's another one here. But you get this doji type bar, which it's mostly bearish. But if you take this, you're going to take a loser. And it's obvious now we're coming back up that quick that we're probably going to make another leg up at least. Notice we got the break and we got 1 leg back, and we don't quite have a new high yet. So you're probably going to get another leg up or attempt at one to make a new high. So just sit tight. Then you get another one here. But notice how we can't get through that midline now, and you got a bunch of bars stacked up. I would just sit tight and wait. You definitely don't want to go long up here. So you might look for a short, but on a trend like this, we're probably going to make a new high. And the high of the overall range is up here, so there's a good chance we're going to test that. The other thing at this point, we hadn't filled the gap. There was a gap I forgot to mention. That red line there is where we closed yesterday. So the odds are strong that we're going to fill that gap. So when we start making these higher lows here each time, it's starting to get suspect. Most likely we're going to fill that gap, and we're probably going to retest the highs at a minimum. So just kind of wait on good longs, but don't go long into the resistance either. So here I think you just have to sit tight. I don't see anything I really like there until we finally move up here and make the new high. We fill the gap. We get a lower high and then another lower high here and a decent signal bar. There are 3 bar matching lows there. I marked that. I really think this ought to be green. I marked it red. But with that 3 bar matching low there, I really think that should have been green. I went back and forth about it, but I'm going to change it back. The thing is, you got a double top and then a lower high. So you got 2 lower highs in a row and a lower low here. So there's a good chance you're going lower, but you just have to be careful with it. You can't really treat this as a reversal here either, because you got this support resistance and you're kind of stuck between it again. We are in this downtrend. It works down. You do get a break here and just a first entry. There's a second entry here, but it doesn't trigger. And then we push back up, and the second entry triggers up here. Now this broke higher and failed and turned down. You could trade that on the engulfing bar, but 95% of you need to wait and let that bar close, and then decide if you want to take the trade. And then the problem you have is it doesn't break lower on the next bar. You get an inside bar. So you really can't take that trade unless you traded it on the engulfing bar. And like I said, most of you should not try to trade that. You do end up making another lower high, and we make a triple test right there and a nice signal bar. I like going short on that one to try to ride it down to the low. And of course, you got a trend here, a break, move to a new low, and that's a second entry long off this previous support down here. And you got a good signal bar. I like taking that one. It runs back up. You could take this trade, but because it's still in that trend channel, I'd probably just wait. Wait on something different. And of course, it bounces down here off the low again. You still got room to get out. It runs up. Here you get a close outside. You don't quite get a new high, but we've bounced across there or turned down across there multiple times. You get a big bearish bar back into the range. I like taking that one. We're working down, close outside, test it again, break above that. We're probably going to the other side. I mean, that one's close. I think if it had been another tick lower, you could argue that wasn't in the upper 1/3, but it looks like it closed in the upper 1/3 to me. I marked it blue just because we bounced down there multiple times. You might have moved this a tad higher here. By the time we got these two bounces right here and this last bounce, you might have moved this all the way up to here. Earlier it was a little bit lower, but now since this point, it looks like that's and that's a failed break lower right there. I think that was one of the trades I demonstrated. I think this one, I can't remember where the other one was. Might have been this one. But anyway, I was trading them on the MES. It's similar, but it looks slightly different. Here's another bounce off the lows, but we turned down a little early there, so I'm not as confident in this one. You're also still in the downtrend. So I'm not as confident in that bounce. I think you almost have to wait. You could probably argue for it to be green, but I'd wait. And it does, it takes off. You get a close outside, a couple of moves to a new high, and you get that failed breakout. But I wouldn't trade that one. See if you get a lower high, which you do, and you just don't get a setup here. It's too sideways. They were just bouncing around. This one was really interesting here, but it didn't break lower. I don't know if you can see that or not. Let me zoom in a little more. Where were we? Now I can't figure out where we were. Was it this one? Must have been this one. That's the second entry. This was the one that didn't break lower. Then you get two legs up and a second entry short and a big bearish bar. I mean, you could almost go short below that one, but I'd probably wait. But when this one gives you a 2-bar matching eye, you can still take it. I like going short there. That's a nice trade, nice move down. Close outside new low, and that's a second entry long. Notice we're working down first entry, move to a new low, and you got the close outside new low. I do believe this was an overshoot as well. So I think you can go long right there, and this thing just takes off. That's probably the trade of the day. It just takes off. And we get a close outside. Looks like we're going to get two legs to a new high, and but it ends up it's like a spiking channel that actually expands here. Could you expand it like this? Yep, probably so. And you can see it does fit even in the midline there. But it didn't matter by that time. At the time we were playing this. And then this just looked like you can still play that as a separate channel, and you get a close outside. That's a second entry long. Notice the new high, first entry, a break above, that's a second entry, and we talked about that one a minute ago. So that's the way I saw it. You really just play, most all of this was range rules today. Most of your trades were right in here on this range when we started to kind of get some consistency. And there wasn't much consistency on this one. You're really working down, close outside, new low, then you're working up, close outside, new high. It turns back down. So a lot of times you have to play these short-term trend channels and let them play out just like you would any other trend channel. So it was an interesting day. Again, we just spent a lot of time chopping sideways without any real direction. The volume was a little low. I mean, sometimes the bars were just taking forever to print. And so it looks like it picked up a little in the afternoon, maybe. But early on, especially right through here, it was fairly low volume. I mean, I would watch the bar and there was a few times it would, and in a 30 to 40 second period, you might only see a dozen contracts trade. And that's rare in the middle of the day in the ES. So always take that into account. Everything you need to see the chart to understand what's going on is in one chart. You don't need all these multiple screens. You got to learn to see it, but it's all there. You can tell the momentum, the speed, the volume. It's all in this chart. You don't need indicators to show it to you. You just need to learn to see it. And that's the key, is learning to see it. And most of you got so many crutches and so many tools, you're never ever going to learn to see it. And so throw all that stuff out, because it's all lagging, and none of it. The only indicator I care anything about really is the 21 bar EMA. That has some value to show you where the average price is. So, and we've found that the 21 EMA is the most reliable when prices come back to it. When prices are trading back and forth above and below it, you're usually in a range. When prices are mostly above it, like here, you're in an uptrend. When they're mostly below it, you're in a downtrend. And so if you just use that rule alone, that helps you stay on the right side of the market. And I've talked about that many, many times. It's in the manual, and people still do not hear it or somehow overlook it. So I'm telling you again, that 21 bar EMA will help you know when the market's trending or when it's in a range. And based on what side the bars are on the most, that's going to tell you which way it's trending. But you can clearly see that this 21 EMA pointing up, and all the bars are mostly above it. That's an uptrend. And then here, notice all morning we're above and below it, above and below it, above and below. We're working sideways. There's a little bit of an uptrend here for a little bit, but most of the time we're working above and below it all, really until about here, about 1 o'clock, and that's when it took off. So keep that in mind. Use that 21 EMA. Throw out all the rest of it. Learn to see everything in one chart, and you'd be surprised how it simplifies your trading and how much easier it is to understand what's going on when you know what to look for and you don't listen to all this BS about all these other ideas that don't work. So the key is learning to understand what prices are doing, and then also learning to understand price movements. Prices do not move by common sense. If you try to trade using common sense, you're going to be in trouble. You're always going to be struggling, because prices don't move by common sense. That's why it doesn't matter how smart you are, you still have to learn price movements and what they tend to do. And it's totally against your common sense. And so don't try to use your common sense and your smarts to trade, because they're just going to fail you. So anyway, I'm going to wrap it up. We'll be back again to do it tomorrow. I'm done for today. This is Mac with PriceActionTradingSystem.com, and we'll see you next time.